So it's a great title, right? How to make $1 million in 90 days in the federal market. And it sounds like a clickbaity type title for a lesson, but it's not. For me, at least, it's not. It's something that I want to teach you in this lesson. It's what I plan on teaching you in this lesson is exactly how do you make $1 million in 90 days, right? And I'll talk to you in a minute about skewing that number to go up or down. That's more appropriate to your company. But this idea of making $1 million or a certain goal within 90 days is achievable. You need to set your own goals, right? But you can achieve the goals you set in the time that you define and that you set for yourself. You can do this. You just have to figure it out. Stephen Covey, and I'm going to help you figure it out. Stephen Covey talks about, he has a book called The 7 Habits for Highly Effective People. And his second habit is begin with the end in mind, right? That's all good and well, Stephen, but once you begin with the end in the mind, like I want $1 million in 90 days, then you got to kind of back it up. You reverse engineer it. This is what I do all the time. I reverse engineer something out. And I think about the steps it'll take to get there. If you can see back here on my whiteboard, right? Whenever I do a training, I go, this is the lesson I want to give you. And then I reverse it out going, well, what do I need to talk about in order for you to have that information or that transformation that'll move you forward. And it's the same thing when we set revenue goals or sales goals, right? Revenue is about money recognized, but sales is about getting it. And so this idea of just reverse engineering it, that's what we're going to talk about. And in this lesson, more specifically, I'm going to talk about how I'm going to talk about knowing your numbers, right? What will it take to reach that goal that you set for yourself? The second thing I'm going to talk about is identifying the right people to call. And then the third thing I'm going to wrap up with actually making outreach calls and give you tips for making phone calls and doing outreach that'll lead to the goals that you set for yourself. So put 90-day goal into the comments if you want me to teach you how to achieve your sales goal in 90 days. Go ahead and put that in the chat. 90-day goals. Put that in the chat if that's what you want me to teach, because that's what I am going to teach. If you don't know who I am, my name is Neil McDonnell. I'm the president of the GovCon Chamber of Commerce. And I'm excited to welcome you to my daily live federal sales training where I teach tips for success in the federal market. I spent 20 years as a small business owner in the federal market. And since 2018, I've been teaching people like you that government contracting is not a secret. It's just a process. I believe at my very core that if you know and follow a proven process, you're going to achieve the success that you want, right? That's why I'm here and that's why you're here. Before we get started, do me a favor, put into the chat 2 or 3 words about your company, your core competency. Put your company name as well. Help the buyers remember who you are. Help people in the community remember who you are, and help drive it into my mind who you are, because I interact with tons of people, right? And if I can remember who you are, it makes it so much easier for me to go, oh, you should talk with Jane. She does this, right? And that's really important for me to be able to help you. But also, I want the buyers to know who you are and others in the community. Last thing is engage, or last thing on this part is engage with those in the community. You're going to see what people sell, the company name, their name, the company name and the person's name. Engage with these people in the community. They're your peers within the government contracting space. They're all open to connections. Reach out and connect with them, right? And give. By the way, remember that. It's always about giving, not taking in a community. The take will actually just be pushed to you. Somebody will want to bring something to you. But if you give, you're making a very strong community. Finally, in the chat, tell me what city and state you're calling from. Put that in there so that everybody can see it and maybe connect with others who are in the same city. The GovCon Chamber of Commerce has members from Guam to the U.S. Virgin Islands and every single state in between. And I'd just like to know where you're calling in from. Okay, we got a fire hose of information I'm going to try to provide you. I know that you want the value of that idea of how to make $1 million in 90 days. And that's exactly what I'm going to be driving towards. I'm going to share my screen because today I figured I'd give you some slides to track on this. So let me just set that up really quick. And then one thing to keep in mind is as we move forward, you'll have your own goals, right? So keep that in mind as you're moving forward. There's a certain criteria for being able to make $1 million. You have to be making $1 already, right? So let me get started here. I'm going to share my whole screen. All right, so now it's on the numbers. So you've already probably heard me talking about know your numbers and setting a goal. So today is about $1 million, but I want you to be realistic about yourself. It's realistic, in my opinion, if you're in the professional services world, construction and product side, that's a little different. Today, we're really focusing on the services side. But if you're even a new company, if you're an expert at what you do and you can get a job, then you can get a subcontract out there in 90 days. It's the same as going to get a job, basically. And so just adjust it down. You can easily be looking at 200,000 if you're, just getting started, $1 million or less or something. And if you're 5 million and above, you should be thinking about $1 million. But set whatever goal is realistic for you. From that standpoint, I'm going to go on the fact that we're all going to go after $1 million in the next 90 days, because then all the numbers I'm going to show you are related to that. You need to adjust your numbers as they fit in. So the second number you want to track in here is what's your average rate, your average hourly bill rate. So if you're doing IT services or HR training or any of this stuff, what's your average rate? I used $100 an hour because of two reasons. One is that's a conservative number in the IT professional services world, but also it's a very easy number for me to do the math. And so $100 an hour generally is a $200,000 a year revenue. You can recognize $200,000 a year at $100 an hour. So you just take your hourly rate, multiply it by 2. As you go forward, the next thing you want to do is determine the FTE count to reach the goal, because you're not going to go out and sell an hour and $100 or the 200,000. You're basically, in our world, whether you do consulting or you call it butts and seat, it's the same thing. You're selling the services of a full-time equivalent person. And so what I said here was, in order for me to reach the goal that I want to reach of $1 million, $1 million divided by $200,000 a year is 5 people. There's the 5 right there. But what I did is I added a person in. In project management, we always say, determine how much time and money it'll cost and then triple it, right? So you always be conservative. And so this is my version of doing that. I said $100 an hour in there. Well, what if I get an $80 an hour rate or something? So I'm just adding a whole nother person in there to my numbers to say, I don't need to reach 5 people. I need to get 6 FTEs billable or starting to be billable in order to have that sales goal achieved of $1 million. So hopefully that's making sense there. Do me a favor as we go forward, drive your numbers or know your numbers into the chat. Just let me know you're tracking on that. The next number you want to pay attention to, and this is where it really works down into the deals where you're working all the way back to today. So if I want 6 FTEs, 6 people being billable in order for me to reach that $1 million goal that I'm setting, then the number of deals I need is basically 6, right? I need 6 FTEs, and so I need 6 deals. Or I could get 1 deal where they give me 6 FTEs. It's less realistic that I can get 1 deal in the next 90 days for 6 FTEs, but it's very realistic that I could get 1 deal or 6 deals with 1 FTE each, if that makes sense. And this is a number that's really important to me, because basically, let's call this number of deals a sale, right? And by the way, if you're not tracking on this, I'm talking about subcontracting. I'm not talking about going out and priming. When I talk about money, subcontracting and priming revenue is the same. It's money coming in. It's all the same. People can debate things in different ways, but when we're talking about revenue, it's the same. Prime contracts are incredibly valuable if you want to sell your company and all that kind of stuff. Yes, there's a lot of value. But if all I'm trying to do is increase my company, if all I'm trying to do is add 6 people into my company who are Amazon Web Service cloud engineers, so I can continue to build up my my team of people who are all really good at this, so I can build my company up in that space, well, then subcontracting or priming is the same. And if you've ever seen me talk about your strategy each year, it should be, as you grow, large subcontracting under a large, subcontracting under a small, and prime contracting. So at this moment, when I say number of deals, it's 6. That's basically number of subcontracts that you land. As you continue to back up, how many prime contractors am I telling you that you need to have in place? You don't want 1, because then you're putting all your eggs in one basket. And what I'm saying is identify 6 strategic prime contractors. And what I mean by a strategic prime contractor in this space is somebody that you have reached out to and established a relationship with, where they agree to work with you. They want to work with you, and then they're just going to figure out over the next 90 days, for example, how they're going to work with you. You're not going in, by the way, and just saying, hey, give me. You're going to have a strategy to reach out, develop the relationship, but it doesn't take long for them to put you on an existing contract, because every day that their existing contracts are not fully staffed up, the government is looking at them as if they're not doing the job they said they would do, and they're losing revenue. If they bring you on for $100 an hour and charge the government $125, they're making a profit, or $105, they're making a profit. They can make the revenue off you. So it's not a bad thing. And I'm not here to have that whole conversation. I'm here to have the numbers one, right? So the number of strategic prime contractors I want you to have are 6, because then your goal basically is to try to get one opportunity from each one FTE opportunity from each one of these 6 primes. If you happen to get more from one prime, that's great. You're positioning yourself to potentially exceed your goal, but at the very least achieve the minimum goal of 6 FTEs that you're trying to add in. And so what I put down here as tips for understanding that they're strategic prime contractors is that they must be meeting with you on a regular basis, right? They must put in place an NDA with you, and you're really lucky if you can get them to put in place a master agreement or something like that that's back with headquarters, because I'm going to talk to you about how you reach out to a bunch of people. But you want to get that company to be able to put some agreement in place that they want to work with you, getting you added to a contract vehicle, things like that. Those are tangible step forward or tactical steps that they can take that prove that they're a strategic prime contractor. So backing this up, right? How do you find those, or how do you land those strategic prime contractors that will help you achieve this goal? In this particular case, you want to have 24 introduction calls. And all I'm saying is an intro call is you reach out to BAE and you've got a meeting with somebody over there and you're having an introduction call and you're saying, this is the value we bring. This is why you should work with us. I'm saying that very loosely. There's a lot more tactic around having that, but you're reaching out and having these calls with somebody who is listening to you about, is there a potential for us to work together? I'm saying that when you do that, you're going to have a 25% success rate if you're reaching out to the right people, which we'll talk about in the next section here. But this is outreach, right? This is outreach by picking up the phone, calling somebody and talking to them. When you do that, it's the start of a relationship that you'll have as you move forward. And then the backing that up even further, how do you get started, right? The very first step in this numbers game, when you're moving towards that sales goal that you set for yourself, is to determine the number of people you have to have in a list in your spreadsheet or whatever, this many people with this many phone numbers and emails, so that you can start reaching out. What I'm suggesting is that 25% of the people you try to reach out to are going to respond to you. If you actually are finding the right people and you're the right company, you're matching your company's capabilities to that company, then 25% of the people are going to respond back to you. You're a fit for all 100 of them because you did your research, but 25% will get back to you and the other 75% will just be busy, get buried in the inbox. Very few will actually say no. The reality is way more will just not respond because of life, right? But 25% is what I'm saying right now. You could use this as a number that you can predict that if you reach out to 100 people, basically, then 25 of them are going to schedule a meeting with you. And if you schedule a meeting with 25 of them, or 24 in this case, then 6 of them will want to work with you and say, let's keep exploring this further. Keep in mind, I'm talking about companies that have proven experience in your skill set and within the federal market, right? If you have that, then you're an attractive partner to any other company that's got business with the federal government, because you're kind of a proven entity. There's no reason they wouldn't want to talk with you, right? And if you line it up, what I'm trying to teach you here, and especially with the numbers, is that most of us fail at doing the first 3 steps, which is basically reaching out, right? Targeting and outreach. We don't pick up the phone. We think about 100 calls. We're like, oh, that's a lot. It's like, how is that a lot? It's 25 a day in 1 week, right? At the beginning of 90 days, in the first week, you could reach out to 100 people. And by the second week, you could have 20 meetings beginning to be lined up. We do this with our customers in our workshop when we teach them how to do it, and then we begin to help them do that. I teach this in my business development course on how people can do it. It just takes putting together this list of leads and then making the phone calls out to them, and you will begin to get in. I can't tell you how you're going to get that, land that business, because I don't know what you offer yet. I don't know what your core competency is. But if you know what your numbers are, then you can make this happen. If you have business developers and capture managers in your company, then this is exactly what they should be doing. And this is not a lot of time. Like, you could do this whole activity in a couple hours a day and still do a whole bunch of other stuff. Okay, so if you're tracking on this, that the first thing you need to do in order to land $1 million in 90 days or whatever your realistic goal is in 90 days, then put know your numbers, because that's what you need to do, is know your numbers. Put that in the comment or chat. Okay, so the second thing I want to show you here is I just want to talk about identifying the right people to call. So the knowing your numbers, I ended up with outreach and targeting down here. Well, now identifying the right people truly is targeting. And I've done a lot of training on this. And so you can go look at our other training replays and find specifically how to do some of the stuff I'm going to tell you to do right now. But the first thing I want you to do is just set your goal for 100 people, right? 100 people is what you're going to do. You're going to build a list of 100 folks that you're going to call. And I'll tell you where you're going to call them. But you just want to build a list. And that list is only complete when it has 100 people, 100 phone numbers, 100 names. And the one thing I would let you know is that I've done this a lot. I mean, recently I've done it a lot, past couple of weeks. And I do it all the time. You can build that list within a single day. It is not hard if you put your energy to it. If you're super busy, then give yourself a week and give yourself 1 hour a day working on it. And you can get that done building a list, because it's just a matter of determining where do you want to go in and how do you find those people. And so let me talk about how you find those people. There's two businesses that you can reach out to go get $1 million in 90 days, right? For subcontracting, because that's what I'm talking about here is landing subcontracting deals within existing contract awardees. And so you can go to small businesses and large. There's a lot of small businesses out there, but what I'm recommending for this activity is find companies, small businesses that are doing 10 million or more in revenue. This shouldn't be overly hard. Just go into USA Spending and you can filter through there. You can go into FPDS and download a whole big spreadsheet and run a pivot table. If you're not familiar with a pivot table, go to Google and type in pivot table. In fact, you don't even have to go into Excel and it'll tell you how to do a pivot table. But if you use a pivot table, you can take FPDS data, right, in the tool, Federal Procurement Data System. You can download that data in a spreadsheet in a matter of minutes. And then you can go over and have Excel do a pivot table that'll point you in the direction of the companies that were earning the most in the past few years. There's many different ways you can do research. I'm not here to teach you how to do the research, but you can go into USA Spending or you can go to FPDS and really get this data. But the idea is you want to identify a bunch of companies that you can reach out to. I would do this in particular if you're a small business yourself that's under 10 million, then be reaching out for small businesses pretty much only. If you're under 5 million, pretty much only reach out to small businesses. If you're a larger small business, you can try reaching out to small businesses, but really your game is in the largest. If you're doing 5 or 10 million plus, then larges are going to be attracted to you. There's something about you that is good enough that they want to talk with you and see where they can work together with you. But when you're reaching out to a small business, my advice to you is only talk to the business owner. Yes, there's all sorts of people who work there. Yes, they're great. Some of my closest friends are people who work in small businesses. But the point is, if you can get to the owner, then there's a much more likelihood that that person will just make a decision to help put you on the team, because part of your approach to them is to tell them you want to build up your experience within a particular agency and under them as a subcontractor to them. So as you continue to learn and work over the next couple of years, whatever it is, whatever your message in there, but it will ring with a small business owner faster than anybody else. And then the second group of identifying the right people are large primes. And so here's some tips on how you can find large prime contractors. It's exactly what I do every single time. If I want to reach out to Booz Allen as an example, and I'm trying to find people, I can go to Booz Allen, type in contract vehicles. That's the best thing you can type when you go to search inside of a large prime, is just type contract vehicles in their search, and it'll bring up a page that they list out all their contract vehicles. And the coolest thing is all their program managers, contract managers, they're all listed there, right? The government requires that they list it there, partly so that small businesses can reach out to them. And I want you to reach out. Don't reach out to a large if you're making certainly less than $1 million. Don't. You're just wasting their time and your time, because there's smalls who will work with you. But when you're bigger and you can really bring some value to the team, they want to hear from you. They need to put smalls on their team anyways. If they can find somebody good like you, then they're going to sit there and work it. So look at contract vehicles on their site. That's one way. The second way you can find people within a large prime is to build a relationship with the SBLOs, engage with the SBLOs. And one thing to keep in mind is don't stick with just the SBLOs you see at these conferences. They're just one person. But if you go to like Boeing, they've got, I don't know, 20 or 30 small business liaisons, but not all of them are that primary visible one who goes to the conferences. And the problem with that, going to that person, is that everybody's going to them. Take the time to learn who else is in your large prime that might be a small business liaison. And one of the ways you can find that out is just by reaching out to other people you might know in there and asking them if they know anybody. So engage with the SBLOs. The third way at a large prime that you can find people's names to begin to reach out to and figure out how to pursue them is go into LinkedIn. If you go into LinkedIn, you can search for business developers in the Navy if that's where you're trying to get in, and be able to reach out and say, hey, we're doing some work in the Navy, but we'd love to connect with you. Frankly, one of the biggest things that I see is people who are working with a large prime who haven't learned to grow organically that relationship. You're doing good work in one place, but you're not expanding it everywhere. And so that obviously is the first place you want to go. If you're a company that's working with large primes already, then you should be looking to get $10 million out of that large prime a year in revenue as a small bit. Like, you should be able to expect that. The same way I say, if you're targeting an agency, target an agency that you could see the long-term growth going to $100 million a year, like the Navy or HHS or something. You should be able to see that in large primes. It's that same thing. If you can't see that relationship growing to $10 million a year, then it's not worth pursuing. And then the second thing is, how close are you to the 10 million? If you're closer to 1 million or below, then you got a lot of room to grow, and you just need to reach out. So use LinkedIn as a way to find people who are maybe at the Navy doing business development. I helped a customer who's targeting Northrop Grumman, and we found 200 people and put them in a list and began to figure out how to pursue them. But it's pretty easy to find people in large primes who are doing capture and business development, which is sales, right? So the contract vehicles that get you access a little bit to the contract vehicles, and the business developers and capture people are getting you closer to the opportunities. And then you just move the relationship towards finding out about current opportunities. And the last one is just moving really fast. Ask agency point of contacts, program managers, small business specialists. I put Matt here as an example in Crane, Indiana. So Naval Surface Warfare Center, Crane, for the Navy. Matt Burkett's out there. He is an example. There's a lot of small business specialists I like that I would put here, but he is the one year after year. For the last 5 years, I've been doing the GovCon Chamber business that we do, or the work we do. He has been this person who is always acting as a true gatekeeper that's swinging it open compared to a gate blocker. He works with you. He will sit there and make introductions. And I've told stories about this before, where I've had customers who go to him and then get introduced to the larges, which allow that customer to then build their own relationship and start moving forward. So ask small business pros in the agency you're trying to get into, or the agency you're working at, could you make introductions to the program managers? The program managers are gold with large primes, because they're the ones who are responsible for fully staffing a contract, right? There's HR and there's talent acquisition, but these people have profit and loss responsibilities for that contract or that agency. They're open to talking with you if you're the right company in there. So, okay, one last thing I wanted to share, and I got to jump to this pretty fast. Hopefully this come up. The last tip I wanted to share, and I'm running out of room here a lot of time, but I'll send you this list. But how do you reach out and how do you follow up? I've got a 30-day plan for how do you reach out and begin to just keep following up with somebody. And I'm happy to send this sales lead follow-up process checklist to you so that you can actually begin to reach out to people and contact them. But the big thing about it is you've got to just pick up the phone, right? And reach out and call them. So it's a fire hose of information. I do a lot here that I'm trying to teach you. But as a recap, if you want to land $1 million or your equivalent dollar value in 90 days, know your numbers, identify the right people, and make outreach calls. And here's my tip for you walking away. Fill out your numbers today. If you want me to send you that worksheet I did with the numbers and what numbers you should fill in, just put numbers worksheet, please, into the chat, and I'll send that to you. Remember, government contracting, it is not a secret. It's just a process. I'll see you in the next training.